Welcome, everyone, to the Global Evolutionary Summit. I am so excited for today. I cannot wait to introduce you to your next master teacher. First, let's open the energy. Today, especially now, the energy is so ripe for us to raise consciousness, come together in a collaborative circle of love to elevate humanity and activate potential within each and every one of us. Because as Donna speaks, you will receive activation codes and energy that will allow you over the coming weeks and months to see places in yourself that are ready for expression because your greatness is there and primed and wanting to be expressed into the world. Thank you so much for joining us. Let me tell you a little bit about Donna. First of all, she's a dear, dear friend, and I'm honored that she joined us. Donna is a soul catalyst, spiritual psychology coach, a Gene Keys guide, and the creator of the Higher Human Integration. I know, a lot. It's amazing. She supports spiritual awakening women who feel emotionally exhausted or misaligned in reconnecting with the wisdom of their soul, reclaiming their authority, and embodying their higher purpose. Drawing on 28 years in executive leadership, a master's degree in spiritual psychology, and deep study of the Gene Keys, Donna bridges practical insight with spiritual wisdom. Through her signature higher human integration process, she guides women in integrating their higher self and their human self so they can lead from within and bring their authentic gifts to the world. Welcome, Donna.
Thank you, Teresa. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes right now and just take a nice, deep, cleansing breath. And then just exhale, breathe out anything that's no longer serving you, letting go of anything you no longer need, whether you're consciously aware of it or not. And as you continue breathing, just allowing your heart to open. And with every inhalation, calling in and calling back your energy from all of the places that it's been out working on your behalf, calling it in from any incomplete cycles of action, any to-do list items, anybody who might be looking for you right now. And as you continue breathing, just knowing you're in a safe, loving space, free to express and explore whatever wants to be brought forward here today. Infinite universe, we call ourselves forward into your loving. We ask to be cleared, filled, surrounded, and protected with the clear white light of living love. We ask that any karma, negativity, or imbalance be lifted and transmuted at this time, taken to the highest realms of light and sound, and dispersed back into the nothingness. Into this space, we recognize grace, peace, light, love, joy, upliftment, higher knowing, original wisdom. We acknowledge and we welcome only those divine beings of light who love each one of us unconditionally, who work for the divine plan and who work for the light. We welcome only you into our sacred space here today. We ask for your support and assistance in bringing forward healing, revelation, and wisdom of the heart that will resonate most profoundly with each individual here for their highest good and the highest good of all concerned, keeping in mind each of our unique destinies. We are grateful to be on the planet at this time. We are grateful to lift our awareness and our consciousness, opening our perspectives, our hearts, our knowingness to higher ways of being. We are grateful for the opportunity to come together and do this work. And for this and more, we say thank you. So be it. And just gently returning your attention to the room. Hmm. Today, I am going to share with you about our spiritual curriculum. And this is a topic that is very alive inside of me. And I made this really cool discovery that I'm going to share with you. And as I've made this discovery, more awarenesses and more information keeps coming through me. So while I've shared this work many times previously, in every moment it continues to change and evolve and move and transform before me. So we can't quite pin it down. And my intention for you as I share today is to really begin to see in your own life the breadcrumb trail that has been left for you as part of your sacred growth plan, as part of your spiritual curriculum. Our spiritual curriculum is our learning journey. And I'm going to drop some terms in here for you that may seem familiar, may be new to you. Um, the first one is sacred soul signature. And our sacred soul signature is a fancy term that I made up for our essence, right? For your soul. It's this energetic blueprint that holds the code to your highest potential. And in addition to our sacred soul signature, we have our sacred soul plan. And our sacred soul plan is the divine unfolding of our life that is really offering up in every moment the learning plan, the growth plan, the curriculum that is designed for our greatest growth and evolution. I'm going to do a little storytelling, and then I'm going to invite you into an inquiry. And so I hope that everyone does have a journal or something to write with so that you will be able to document what you want to capture. And in that capturing, I want to tell you that it doesn't have to make any sense. It's very important that you know that if some memory comes forward for you or some thread of something that seems completely out of left field, know that that is important and sacred information being shown to you. And I am cramming in probably a 3-day workshop into a 90-minute segment. And I just can't help it. I am a prolific creator. I can't even keep up with my damn self because the information is it just keeps coming and coming. And I want to share all of it with everyone all of the time. So I want to apologize in advance if it's a lot and it feels overwhelming. Know that you'll take with you exactly what you need for your journey and your growth. So my story starts in kindergarten. I was 5. I was in the back of the classroom, all the way in the back of the classroom. And I am chatting away to the girl next to me, blah, blah, blah. Who even knows what was on my 5-year-old mind? And the teacher called me out for talking. And then she said, and Donna, try sitting like a lady. And to this day, I can still hear every kid in that classroom pushing themselves back away from their desks with their metal chairs scraping on the cement floor so they could crank their little bodies all the way around and get a look at me squatting on my chair with my bloomers to the sky. I was destined to be talking about the divine feminine the whole time. That was a moment of deep shame that was imprinted upon me as all of those kids stared at me with my bloomers. And what's important to recognize that I didn't recognize then, of course, was that moment wasn't an accident. It was a moment that I would later come to remember that would turn into an activation that would later get refined. But at that point in my life, it was pure shame. Fast forward, now I'm 14. I don't remember, of course, the silent decisions that I made to myself at the age of 5 that it wasn't safe to share your voice. Those silent agreements that I had made were unconscious to my waking mind. But here I was at age 14 in drama class in a great big auditorium. And my girlfriends had convinced me that it would be a good idea to step up to the podium and read the secret poem, the secret love poem that I wrote to Joe Diadio, proclaiming my love for him. Everybody laughed. Everybody knew that I loved Joe Diadio. That shame was activated again. But I also, at that point, made a choice that not only was it not okay to open my mouth, but it was also not okay to open my heart. And so those two things got shut down at a very early age. So, what was it for you that got closed off, that got muted, that got told to stand in the corner? Maybe you don't have a story about showing your underwear to the whole classroom, but I know if we went around the circle, everybody would have a story of something inside of you that got closed off. Maybe it was your intuition. Maybe it was your creativity, your leadership, your inner knowingness, your sensitivity. Whatever it was on purpose because it was laying the path for a reclamation that you were destined to go through in your life. So we're going to take just a few minutes and I'm going to invite you into the first question of what natural part of you got shut down early in life, and not because it was wrong, but because it held some sort of power. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop that in the chat. What natural part of you got shut down early in life, and not because it was wrong, but because it held some sort of power? Take just another minute. Each one of us holds an entelechy inside of us. Who's familiar with that word, entelechy? Entlechy. Anybody ever heard of it before? So the entelechy of an acorn is an oak tree. The entelechy of a caterpillar is a butterfly. Each one of us has an entelechy, the fullest realized expression of who we came here to be in this life. And that entelechy is held inside of our sacred soul signature. And the way that that entelechy comes to life, comes to be, is through our sacred soul plan. So I managed to fly under the radar for a good amount of time in my career. I was a corporate marketing executive for 28 years before I turned 44, which was the age that my father was when he died. And suddenly I was in a really big rush to figure out what was my life really about? Why was I here? And what is the contribution that I am designed to make to the world? So I enrolled myself in a master's program in spiritual psychology. And that led me into a journey into my own heart. It also led me out of a very confined and prescriptive life, following a lot of rules of what I thought I should be doing. And it invited me into the authentic self expression that I am here to share with the small circle of the people that I love in my life and the bigger circle of people that I am here to inspire and uplift and teach. But throughout my corporate career, I managed, for the most part, to keep quiet because I had these subconscious beliefs that it wasn't okay to be speaking up and speaking out. It wasn't okay to authentically share my heart or my voice. So I would go to human resources or employee orientations, and I would talk about the marketing department, and that was about the extent of it. So I enrolled myself in this master's program in spiritual psychology. And there's all of these things now that are bubbling up inside of me that I can barely contain. And so, again, unknowingly, I take a route of sharing that felt a little bit safer. And I wrote a blog post. And this was back in, I don't know, 2014, 2015. And I wrote this blog post and I hung it up on donnabond.com, where I can promise you nobody was going. Nobody was going there. But this blog post was about the work of Dr. David Hawkins and the scale of consciousness that he created. And I talked all about this scale. I was completely in awe when I began to understand that we have these emotions that all have a vibratory frequency to them. And the lower emotions like shame and guilt and apathy and grief are heavy and dense, and they essentially cover up our higher essence, which is vibrating at a frequency of love. That's our true nature. That's our true self, our true authentic power, which is the power of love. That is your truth. That is the truth of who you are. But these things happen to us in life. And as a result of them happening, we experience an emotional response that then gets crystallized somewhere in our energetics that act as a block from that light, that love, that brilliance of your true self shining out into the world. And those things get trapped and stuck in our energetic field. So that's an important piece of the story that's a little side ramble. So let's come back to this blog post that I hung up about this work that I just was so enthusiastic about. When I discovered this, it blew my head open. Months, I don't know, 2 or 3 months after I wrote this blog post and hung it up, I received a note from the Hawkins Foundation saying that they were going to sue me for $100,000 because the map of consciousness is trademarked. And having a trademark on something means you have to adhere to the rules of the trademark, which, even though I had provided clear attribution and a link to their website, it didn't matter. I complied, took down the blog post immediately, and went about my way. This desire to share all that I was learning, I couldn't help but get it out. So I started to go to little speaking events at the local Temple of Light and stand in front of small audiences and begin to teach and share and speak. And I loved it. And it breathed aliveness through me in a way that I lost time. And I felt alive. I felt free. I felt clear and joy filled because it was the truth of me breaking through any of the limited conditioning and patterning that I had. So I got a glimpse of it. And having a glimpse of what it is that brings you alive is a very important breadcrumb on your trail. What qualities of your true expression did you learn to suppress or set aside? And when I talk about qualities, I want to give you a couple of examples here. I'm talking about like playfulness is a quality of your expression. Maybe you were told uh, that you needed to be a little bit more serious in life, and that squelched your playfulness. Or maybe your artistic expression got shut down, and you were told to color inside the lines. Maybe it was your unconventional thinking that got snuffed out or closed down because you were told that you had to follow the rules. Maybe you were bossy and you were told not to be bossy. I'm a little bossy. So my leadership skills sometimes got put in their place, got told to go get back in the corner. What qualities of your true expression did you learn to suppress or set aside? I'll drop the question in the chat. Take just another minute with that. And just gently bringing that to completion. I am going to share a handout afterwards so that you'll have all of these questions to be able to dive in a little bit deeper and uh, have a little bit more structure to the information that I'm giving to you. I'm a little unstructured. It's just the way I roll. So there's more breadcrumbs along my trail. So I was getting a little bit more courageous and, going to these local centers and sharing. And this really strange woman came up to me one afternoon and she said, "Oh, are you speaking today?" And I said, "Yeah." She's like, "Oh, who are you speaking for?" And I thought that was a little bit of a weird question. I said, "The audience members, like the people who are there." She says, "Oh, that's too bad." I didn't know what she meant. I thought she was really weird. She was sort of really close to me in my space. And then she just sort of disappeared. So I went for my share, and there maybe were 6 or 8 people in the room. And as I was sharing, I suddenly, I'm not telling you the story correctly. What she said to me was that it was too bad. And she said, uh, "What if you were speaking for yourself?" And I thought, well, that would be selfish. That would be, irresponsible. Why would I just be speaking for myself? That doesn't make any sense. So when I got to the room and I started to share, in the midst of speaking, I suddenly realized what she meant, that I was actually speaking for myself because I had this fire inside of me. I had this song that I had to sing. And if you want to sing that song with me, great. We can sing that song together. If you don't like my song and you want to sing your own song, fabulous. You be you, you do your thing, I'll do mine. But I have to sing this song. And that was a very important moment on my breadcrumb trail because it made me realize inside of myself that there was something going on that was bigger than me. There was something happening that was coming up and bubbling through this vessel that was about more than what anybody else thought. It was about more even than what I thought about myself. It was something that couldn't be contained or confined or controlled, that was moving through me. And in that moment, I realized what that woman had meant, even though I thought she was a little bit weird. And then I went to go look for her after the fact, and I couldn't find her. She had completely disappeared. So time goes on and I'm getting a little bit more courageous and I write an article in Radiance magazine. It's my very first printed article that comes out in this Orange County spiritual publication. And I received an email from my professors at the University of Santa Monica, Doctors Ron and Mary Holnick. And they write, "Oh, we saw your article in Radiance magazine, and it was a very nice article. And you talked about all these things that you learned at the University of Santa Monica, but you didn't give us any credit. And we would like to ask that in the future, you're crediting us for our work." Well, the activation of the shame all the way back to kindergarten burned through me. I was so humiliated. I was so embarrassed. I was a seasoned marketing professional. How could I have made a mistake this great where I talked about all these things, where I definitely used key phrases that were their IP as it goes, that I did not properly attribute to them? I was mortified, and I shrunk right back into the same old patterns of shame, of keeping my mouth closed and keeping my heart closed. And I cried a lot of tears. And here I am believing and thinking that I'm on the path to my destiny, and am experiencing all of this aliveness in my life, and I'm having so much fun, and I can't believe I get to do this, and all of this great stuff is happening, and wham. But then I started to really think about this, and I started to connect the dots. I started to think about the email from the Hawkins Foundation, and they were going to sue me for $100,000. And now I'm getting this note from my professors, and it all seemed a little bit weird. It all seemed like you couldn't really even make this shit up, right? Like, is this really happening like this? And the more I started to contemplate it, I got mad. I got angry. And I got angry because I was allowing the outside world to tell me what was okay that I could or could not do. I was giving my power to all of these external places and, authority figures as I perceive them to be, which could have very easily kept me silent if I didn't get mad. And I want to show you on the scale of consciousness something very important. And something that's very important is the crossover of anger that is on the way to courage. So I borrowed this from uh, a website that I can't reference in this moment, but here is a rendition of the scale of consciousness. And this is the map of our emotional scale and how it goes up. And this marker here at 200, where we talk about courage, is a very important threshold that we must cross over. Because as we cross over this threshold of courage, we move ourselves out of victim consciousness. We shift out of life is happening to me, and we begin to take dominion over our lives, over our perceptions, over the meaning that we give to things, and we move ourselves into a natural place of empowerment. And that courage marker is the threshold that we must cross to be able to reclaim our power, our authentic power. So anger became very important on this storyline for me, because even though I was angry, there's also a deep understanding of self responsibility that's also involved here. Because if we stay in anger, then we get caught up in blaming and finger pointing, and they did that to me, instead of the reclamation of, wow, I'm learning some things here. I've made a couple of mistakes. It's really important that I am uh, giving proper attribution to people along the way, to the shoulders of the giants that I get to stand on as I share so passionately about the things that I love. So, this is an important awareness, this spark of truth that we have, and really the invitation that is a choice point. And this is the important question. Am I going to be courageous and face my fear, or am I going to shrink back down into those old victim patterns of shame and guilt and stay quiet? And if I had stayed quiet, that we wouldn't all be here today. And the many, many hundreds of women that I have had the privilege and honor of sharing with over the last decade, none of those conversations would have happened. None of the life changing decisions that people have gone on to make as a result of listening to my long and winding stories would have unfolded or occurred. So, the next question that I have for you is, when have you been misunderstood or criticized, but you felt something rise up in you anyway? You felt something that was coming up no matter what. When have you been misunderstood or criticized, but felt something in you wake up anyway? And take just another minute with that. And just gently bringing that to completion. Our ego mind is essentially our operating system, our learned self, the part of us that has been taught, conditioned, programmed by our parents, our teachers, our governments, our religions, our cultures, our societies, all of these influences telling us who to be and how to be. And the ego has an MO: safety, security, comfort, and control. Those are its four main agenda items. And so anything that feels threatening to safety, security, comfort, and control, the ego doesn't like. That's going to send up those red flags and maybe create some additional patterns of control to try to get the outside world to behave in a way that we can then relax and feel good about ourselves. But that is a bit of an illusion because we can make ourselves crazy trying to control and manipulate and coerce the world around us so that we can feel good. Our soul, however, our essence, our true nature, is here for wisdom. That's why the soul takes embodiment and comes to the Earth School. The Earth School was a term that was coined by Gary Zukav in his book, The Seat of the Soul, that he wrote in 1989. I was on an airplane reading that book. I was so excited as I was seeing written on these pages things that I had only known somewhere deep inside of me that I couldn't even articulate at the time. But I was so excited that someone wrote them down in these pages. And that's when I first learned about the Earth School. So we are here in the Earth School to gain wisdom. The ego wants knowledge. It wants the information. It wants the knowledge and the information so that it can feel right, so that it can feel in control, so that it can navigate the world uh, with safety. It doesn't like any surprises. But the soul, the only way to garner wisdom is through experience. And so the soul likes to have a varied degree of experiences, whereas the ego is designed for survival and certainty, and it must willingly surrender itself. It must willingly surrender its tight grip on the world to allow itself to open enough to let the soul come in and guide and lead. So fast forward I am now very aware of this pattern that continues to unfold in my life. I can see the breadcrumb trail, and there's like 10 other stories that I am omitting from my share today that are additional breadcrumbs that were all around the withholding of my own authentic expression. So, in just a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I was in a room full of 200 people at an advanced spiritual psychology weekend workshop. And I had raised my yellow Zoom hand, and there were probably 10 other people who still had their hands raised. And I could see Dr. Holnick intuiting who she was going to call on next. And there's 5 minutes left before the lunch break. And there's 200 hungry people in the audience, right? And I'm watching her and I'm closing my eyes and I'm saying to myself, don't call on me, don't call on me, don't call on me, don't call on me, don't call on me. Donna Bond. The same thing happened that has happened many, many times before in a large group share, in a large audience of 200 people. I got picked and I couldn't manage the amount of energy that was coming in to me and through me. So, usually, what would happen is I would lose my footing. I would completely lose track of whatever it was that I wanted to bring forward in my heartfelt share. And I would make it pretty. I'd make it nice. I'd say something like, "Oh, thank you so much for having the weekend class. I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you so much for doing this work in the world." But this time I didn't do that. This time I waited with myself. This time I had my own back. This time I listened to my heart beating through my chest. And I waited with myself until I could catch my breath and until the information that I wanted to share had returned to me and was available. This time I didn't self abandon. And it was a very important moment on the trail because when I didn't fall into the old patterns of shame, of withholding, I dissolved it. I don't want to say I broke it. We get into the terminology that we use is so important. And as I've chosen to have a more gentle, softer experience in my life, I am very attuned to the word choices that I use. So I like to think about dissolving or evolving our patterns. We're not here to break anything, we're here to transform and transmute some of the older shackles that we can get entangled with that keep us from the fullest realized expression of who we have come here to be, what you've come here to do or share or teach or give or express. So, where is your ego demanding guarantees while your soul is simply trying to call you forward? We'll take just a few more minutes with this. The question is, where is your ego demanding guarantees while your soul is simply calling you forward? We're an hour in. And just bringing that to completion. Surrender is part of the plan, because if we don't surrender the control of our ego and the ego's direction and the ego's behaviors and the ego's uh, thinking that it knows best and thinking that it knows more, when we're unwilling to surrender that, we stay trapped in negative feedback loops that keep us repeating the same patterns over and over and over. And so we have to make that leap in a way. Surrendering is making a leap. Surrendering is the inner knowingness that there is something greater guiding us, shepherding us, leading us to our fullest potential in this life. And that leap, I have a theory about this. And as a matter of fact, I've got this sort of penciled out in another book that I'm writing on the side as it delves more deeply into this idea of our entelechy. And I have this phrase called in the air of the leap. Our ego wants to plan and strategize and have a 6 point exit strategy and understand the return on the investment and how long is it going to take. The ego likes the info and it wants to feel that certainty. But we have to be willing to open ourselves to a higher power, to the wisdom of our soul. And when we make that leap, what happens in the air of the leap is additional timelines open, new possibilities present themselves in ways that they could have never come forward if we were still standing on the ground. So when I made 200 people wait on me, even though they were hungry and even though they wanted to go to lunch. That was an act of courage. That was me making a leap into the great unknown in a way that gave me a surge of inner confidence and inner knowingness and inner authentic power that I needed to take with me on the rest of the journey. And I am not fooling myself into believing that the offering of my curriculum isn't around the next corner. because it always is. And one of the things that we say in spiritual psychology is how you relate to the issue is the issue. How we relate to ourselves when we're going through an issue is our opportunity for growth and learning and evolution. And so when I stayed with myself and didn't abandon myself, I was surrendering in the air of the leap in a way that was activating these invisible timelines and reclaiming my authentic power. So, my next question is, what would it look like to allow your soul to lead while your ego learns to trust without needing to know every single step? And just take another minute with that. And just bringing that to completion. I think when we get on a spiritual path, especially in the beginning, we fool ourselves into thinking that there is an actual destination that we're going to arrive to. And the longer we stay on the path and the more awareness that we bring to it, the more we recognize that it's just a process of evolution, that there is no end point. And as long as we are in these human bodies, We're always taking a new lap around the spiral. And we want our growth to make sense and be linear, but it's not. It really happens in a spiral, and we go around the spiral. And every lap that we make around the spiral, we go up a little and we go out a little. But we get to that same sticky spot. We get to that same challenge, and we think to ourselves, my God, I thought I already worked through this. I thought I figured this out. I thought I healed this. But here it is again, asking for our loving awareness and our loving relationship in a different way, in a higher way, in a more compassionate way. So I would love to just take a little sharing from anybody who feels called. If this has woke something up inside of you, if you are able to see your own breadcrumb trail, if anything has come forward as far as hidden gifts and something inside of you that might be knocking at the door of your life at this time, saying, please remember me. Remember that this is part of your aliveness. I want to move through you and be shared out into the world. Trish, do you want to share?
Sure.
Hi.
Hi. How did you know I wanted to share?
Sorry.
I was contemplating it. So I wanted to share that the question that sort of got me was the one about the ego, the where the ego demands guarantees, and it's interesting because I was like, oh well, that's like my business, my like I'm a life coach, and it's like my ego is always like, oh, you have to prove these things, and you have to be like this, and you have to be this way, and then my soul trying to come through is just like follow your intuition and do what feels right, and you're like helping people, but then the ego comes in, it's like, yeah, but you're not doing this, you're not doing this. So I liked that question. It was a a powerful reflection.
Mm. So if you, may I coach you?
Sure, let's go for
If
it.
you were going to coach that voice, your ego, what would you say to it?
Mm. Oh, that's a good question. So the ego is sort of comparing. So let's see. So what would I say to the ego is comparing? I might I might say I might remind ego that what other people say and do has nothing to do with you.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
And 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 I might also remind them that comparing people is like pretty useless because we're all on our own journey and evolution, and my experience will never be what someone else's is, and I
Yeah.
will never experience what they will. So you know
Can you say a little bit more about that?
um let's see. I guess because when when you talk about comparison, I need to remind myself. So I guess I would remind ego that um, no two experiences will be the same. So that's why there's no, comparison is not productive, because what I experience is unique to me, and no one else can ever have that. So it's impossible to compare two humans.
Yeah. Love this, Trish. Love that.
yeah. So I think it's also recognizing that other people are doing different things, and they're doing what they need to do for them because that's their expression. And my focus is, supporting my expression.
Beautiful.
Um, yeah, I think that would be effective to share with my ego.
Well done. Thank you so
Thank
much for your beautiful
Oh,
share. Yes,
thank you.
love it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just in our space. Anyone else have any insights they'd like to share?
Can share from, I don't know if I think it was the third question. Um, when have you been misunderstood or criticized, but felt something waking up anyway? I had like one thing that came up, which was like my move to Seattle when my family did not want me to come. And that was the first time I was like, no, I'm going. Like, I know I'm going to go. If it's like a fail safe at this point, I'm like, I'm 22. What could go wrong? And that was the one thing that came up. And then this basically what came up was like, well, I haven't been putting myself out there to be criticized or misunderstood
Mm,
outside of like those moments. I've been really protecting myself, which goes back to like, what have I been suppressing, which is, yeah, my voice, my expression. Um, yeah, my basically not being afraid to be not liked or wanted or accepted.
mm.
Yeah.
Beautiful, Becca. What a gorgeous awareness. Yeah, I really sense the empowerment in what you're sharing.
Yeah. Feels like it's new coming in. So I'm like still just sitting with it. But yeah, that came up.
Excellent. Beautiful. Thank you. Well, I was supposed to have a link ready to drop in the chat to give you a handout, but who knows where that is. um, but I will absolutely post it in. Actually, let me see if I can grab it really quick.
We can also put it in the community, and I'll include it in the email I send with the link to the replay so that everybody has ready access to it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can grab it. And then I'm going to close our sacred space. Ah, here we go. So you're welcome to download this. It's going to be a little peek into the story that I will be fully sharing in the Global Evolutionary Summit collaborative book project that will be coming out early next spring. And there are many journaling questions for you in there. I hope that this has been of value to you and that it has supported you in beginning to see your own curriculum. And, the higher intention of this is all of these experiences are designed to grow us and walk us into our power. And we are on the most epic time of the planet ever. And it is a privilege to be here on planet Earth at this time. And we need all of us in our strength, in our authentic power, in our soul wisdom, sharing that out with the world in however that looks. That can be in the way that you plant a garden or make dinner or take care of your family. But that radiance coming through you can be turned up as we begin to meet those fears inside of us and disentangle the stronghold that they have had for so many previous years. And we do that with love and with compassion. Things are on repeat on purpose. Pay attention to them. I'm going to just close our space in the same way that I opened it. So just inviting you to close your eyes once and again, asking that the light be sent up ahead to each person who was here in whole or part, live or watching the replay, sending a blessing of light and loving on your sacred soul journey, the journey of your life, as you are unfolding your sacred soul plan and working through your spiritual curriculum, bringing forward and shining through your entelechy, the fullest realized expression of who you've come here to be. We are now closing all energetic lines of communication between any of us, closing all open portals, gateways, channels, agreements, and lines of communication between either one of us and the spirit world. We are grateful and we say thank you. So be it. Teresa, thank you so much for this incredible sacred space and for calling us all together on this mission.
Thank you for being part of everyone's journey, both here now and those watching later. I know that for me, the questions that you posed have evoked places where I'm going to go deeper and explore and learn more about my own journey. And I invite everyone else to revisit both the shared document and the recording, because this is layers. It doesn't ever stop, as Donna has explained to us, and it's essential that we look in all the corners. Thank you, Donna, for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you all for attending, for participating, and for sharing. Next week, we have Patty Conklin on, and she will be talking about vibrational medicine. We're very excited for that. And in the meantime, I love you, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Teresa. Love you, Sally Shakti. Thank you, everyone.